I'll give you $10 million if you can translate this menu.
Perhaps you should check the translation on page 2, sir. It's in 5 languages.
What if your hidden talent was the only thing standing between a billionaire and his next conquest? He laughed in her face. He offered her $10 million as a joke. I'll give you 10 metals if you translate this, he scoffed. But the shy waitress, earning minimum wage, did more than translate it. She decoded his arrogance, uncovered a conspiracy, and in one night, she didn't just silence him. She checkmated him. This is the story of how a single sentence turned a waitress into a queen. Stay tuned, you won't believe the twists. The scent of truffle oil and old money hung heavy in the air at L'Etoile d'Or. It was a perfume Amelia Vance had never gotten used to, even after 6 months of balancing $300 plates on her slender arms. She was a ghost in this world, trained to be invisible, silent, and efficient. Her black waistcoat was starched, her white apron pristine, and her expression carefully neutral. But behind her quiet, hazel eyes, a brilliant mind was drowning in student debt and family medical bills. Amelia was shy. Not painfully so, but she was a creature of libraries and lecture halls, not the Shark Tank of New York's elite. She'd been top of her class, a doctoral candidate in paleography and historical linguistics at Columbia, specializing in pre-romantic ciphers. Then her sister Clara got sick. The PhD was abandoned, and the mountain of debt became an avalanche. Now she served men who used words like acquisition and leverage as weapons. Tonight's weapons were being brandished at Table 7, the restaurant's most exclusive alcove. The man at its head was Julian Thorne. Even if you didn't know his name, you knew his type. His suit was a custom-tailored shadow, his watch was worth more than her apartment building, and his eyes, a cold Arctic blue, never seemed to blinks. He was the CEO and founder of Thorne Industries, a hydra of a corporation dealing in logistics, mining, and emerging tech. With him were 2 others, David Chen, his sleek, silent legal counsel, and Marcus Reed, a vice president whose entire personality seemed to be loud agreement. Amelia was refilling their water glasses, her movements fluid and practiced, when the conversation shifted. "Soloway is a dead end," Thorne said, his voice a low growl. He slid a high-resolution tablet across the polished mahogany table. "He's either a fraud or a coward. He claims it's unsolvable." "He is the foremost expert," Marcus offered weakly. He said the dialect is indeterminate. "The dialect is a 15th century Basque variant, mixed with an alchemical cipher." "I know that," Thorne snapped, clearly disgusted. "But the cipher is the key. Without it, the Weiner manuscript is just a pretty, useless relic. And Aperture Global is closing in on the Pyrenees site. They're blind drilling, but they'll get lucky eventually. I need what's in this now." Amelia froze. Her hand, holding the heavy water pitcher, paused for a millisecond. 15th century Basque variant. Alchemical cipher. Weiner manuscript. It couldn't be. The Weiner manuscript was a myth, a footnote in an obscure text she'd read for her abandoned dissertation. It was rumored to be the journal of a Rosicrucian alchemist who'd encoded the location of something. Most academics thought it was a hoax, like the Voynich manuscript, a beautiful nonsensical book. But she had disagreed. She had written a 40-page paper arguing that the few available fragments suggested it wasn't a language cipher, but a conceptual one. Not A-B, but water-mercury A-shift in the following stanza. Thorne saw her pause. His eyes narrowed. "Is there a problem?" Amelia's face flushed. "No, sir. My apologies." She moved to refill his glass, but Marcus, in his haste to agree with his boss again, gesticulated wildly. "Julian, we can find someone else. We just need time." His hand slammed into Amelia's arm. The pitcher didn't fall, but ice water sloshed over the side, splashing onto the table and the priceless tablet. Time stopped. Marcus looked horrified. David Chen closed his eyes, as if in prayer. Amelia felt the blood drain from her face. "Sir, I am so sorry. You," Julian Thorne hissed, his voice dangerously quiet. He grabbed a napkin and dabbed at the tablet, his eyes fixed on her. "You are clumsy. You are replaceable. Do you have any idea the value of the information you just spilled water on?" "Julian, it's fine. The device is waterproof," David Chen murmured. "That's not the point, David." Thorne's gaze was locked on Amelia, who was trembling, but also staring at the screen. The water had highlighted the digital script. She could see it, the precise script she had memorized. She whispered it, an involuntary breath. "It's not elemental, it's astrological. The key is the progression of Mars." The table went dead silent. Amelia clapped a hand over her mouth. She hadn't meant to say it. It was an academic reflex. Marcus Reed snorted. "What did you say?" Julian Thorne's head tilted. His expression wasn't angry anymore. It was amused, a dark, predatory amusement. He looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time, the shy, trembling waitress. "What did you just say, little girl?" Amelia swallowed. Nothing, sir, I apologize. I'll get a towel." "No." He held up a hand. He tapped the screen, zooming in on a line of intricate alien symbols. "You think you can read this? You? The waitress? What are you, a history buff? Did you take a community college class on the Da Vinci Code?" Marcus laughed, a loud, braying sound. Amelia felt a spark, a tiny, cold spark of anger that her shyness usually smothered. The arrogance of this man, the dismissal. He was mocking a subject that was her life's blood. "It's a Rosicrucian cipher," she said, her voice quiet but clear. "The Basque is a blind. It's meant to misdirect the translator. The real text is hidden in the lunar phases, marked in the margins. The V symbol isn't a V, it's the sign for Taurus, which means the corresponding passage is a fixed, earthly element. It's not a map, it's a formula." The silence that followed was absolute. David Chen's pen slipped from his fingers. Marcus's smile froze and slowly evaporated. Julian Thorne stared at her. His pupils were wide, like a shark tasting blood. He had no idea if she was right, but he knew she believed she was right, and she'd used words his foremost expert hadn't. He began to smile. It was not a kind smile. Well, a genius in our midst. He leaned back, spreading his hands. A regular prodigy, hiding in plain sight, serving bread. He laughed, a sharp, barking sound that made the other diners flinch. "All right, prodigy, let's make a deal." He tapped the tablet. "You're so smart. You translate this. Translate this one page. Right here, right now. You do it, and I'll give you $10 million. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "But if you're wrong, if you're wasting my time with your college girl fantasies, you're not just fired. I'll make sure you never serve a glass of water in this city again. I'll personally own your student debt. How about that?" It was a trap, a cruel, public joke. He was going to humiliate her, then have her fired. He wanted her to back down, to cry, to flee, so he could go back to his important business. Amelia looked at the tablet. She saw the script, and it was like music in her head. She looked at her sister's future, a grim, grey expanse of medical bills. She looked at Julian Thorne, a man who had everything and respected nothing. Her shyness was still there, a cold knot in her stomach, but the anger was warmer. "I don't have a pen," she said. David Chen, his face a mask of disbelief, slowly, mechanically, pulled a solid gold fountain pen from his breast pocket and held it out to her. Amelia took it. She reached for a clean linen napkin from the bread basket. "And the 10 million? I'll need that in writing." Julian Thorne's laugh echoed through the restaurant. "She's got spirit," he roared. "Give her the damned pen. This is going to be the best $10 million I never spend." He slid the tablet in front of her. "The floor is yours, prodigy. Silence me." The entire restaurant had faded. The clinking of glasses, the murmur of conversations, the soft jazz playing over the speakers. It all dissolved into a dull, distant hum. For Amelia, there was only the glowing screen of the tablet and the intricate, beautiful dance of the cipher. Her shyness, which had felt like a lead weight in her stomach, didn't vanish. Instead, it sublimated, transformed. It was the same intense focus she'd always had, the state that made her shy in public, but a lion in the archives. It was the quiet of a deep-sea diver, descending into a world no one else could reach. Julian Thorne watched, his smirk still playing on his lips, expecting her to fail. Marcus Reed was already drafting a text to his friends about the insane waitress. David Chen, the lawyer, watched with a quiet, unreadable intensity. Amelia picked up the heavy gold pen. She pulled the linen napkin closer, its starchy crispness a stark contrast to the digital screen. She didn't write on the napkin. Not yet. She placed her finger on the screen and began to scroll, her eyes moving at a speed that defied casual reading. "You said 1 page," she murmured, more to herself than to him. "But you showed me the wrong page. The page you showed me. That's the appendix. It's a list of sources. Useless." Julian's smirk twitched. "What?" "Your expert, Dr. Soloway. He started at the beginning. He thinks this is a book. It's not. It's a laboratory journal." Her finger scrolled past diagrams of stars and plants. "He was trying to translate this line," she pointed. "He probably thought it meant, 'The Red King consumes the sun.' Alchemical poetry. But he's wrong. He's missing the key." "And you have the key?" Julian said, his voice losing its mocking edge, replaced by a sharp, cold curiosity. "The key isn't in the text. It's in the border." She zoomed in on the intricate filigree at the edge of the digital page. To the naked eye, it was just decoration. To Amelia, it was a data stream. "Here," she said, pointing. "This leaf is the symbol for Veneris, Venus, and this star is Scorpio. Venus in Scorpio, an astrological placement. It means the entire cipher on this page is compromised. It's designed to be read incorrectly." "A booby trap," David Chen whispered, leaning in. "Exactly," Amelia said. "An academic trap. The author wanted to filter out the uninitiated. But if you apply the corrective, if you know that Venus in Scorpio means you must read every third word backwards and substitute all earth elements with their water counterparts, then the text changes." Julian Thorne was no longer smiling. He was leaning forward, his arctic blue eyes fixed on her face, his expression one of pure, predatory focus. "Do it," he commanded. Amelia took a deep breath. She looked at the line Soloway had failed to translate. She picked up the pen and began to write on the napkin. "The original text," she said, her voice soft but sure, "appears to be Rex ruber solem, consumit et ex cineribus renascitur. The Red King consumes the sun and is reborn from the ashes." "Poetry," Marcus scoffed, trying to regain his footing. "But with the corrective," Amelia wrote. "The real translation is, the iron sulfide, the Red King, requires a solar-based thermal reaction, consumes the sun. The resulting material, the ashes, is not a byproduct, but the catalyst itself. She didn't stop. She moved to the next line, and the next, her hand flying across the linen napkin. The poetry melted away, replaced by technical specifications. The sleeping shepherd wasn't a man. It was a dormant volcano. The water that weeps stone wasn't a magic spring. It was a petrifying waterfall, indicating a high concentration of specific minerals. She was translating a 15th century geological survey and a guide to geothermal energy. And then she reached the final lines of the page. Her breath caught. She stopped writing. "What?" Julian demanded. "What is it?" Amelia looked up from the napkin. Her face was pale. This is more than a formula. It's a claim." She wrote the last 2 lines on the napkin. "Sub pastore dormiente, ubi aqua lapidem flet, iaceo, primus inter pares, haec est mea." She translated, her voice trembling slightly. "Beneath the sleeping shepherd, where the water weeps stone, I lie. First among equals. This is mine." She looked at Julian Thorne. "It's a deed. It's a 15th century legal declaration of ownership, predating any modern treaty. The author, the alchemist, he was claiming the entire site, the volcano, the minerals, the geothermal source. He was claiming it all." The table was silent. The only sound was the distant clink of a fork. Julian Thorne stared at the napkin. He stared at the lines she had written. He looked at the legal phrasing. Primus inter pares, haec est mea. This was the weapon he needed. Aperture Global was drilling based on geological surveys. He was about to walk into court with a 500-year-old deed, a deed that his expert had dismissed as nonsense poetry. He looked at David Chen. David's face was ashen. He was a lawyer. He understood exactly what this meant. This changed the game from a resource race to a legal checkmate. Julian Thorne slowly, deliberately, folded the napkin and slipped it into his breast pocket, next to his $10,000 wallet. He looked at Amelia. The transformation was complete. The air of predatory amusement was gone, replaced by the chillingly neutral expression of a man doing a 9-figure calculation. He saw the empty water glasses. He saw the other diners. He saw a liability. "Marcus," he said, not looking away from Amelia. "Pay the bill, all of it, the entire restaurants. Tell them it's a private celebration." "Sir," Marcus squeaked. "And David," Thorne continued, "get the car and have Soloway's contract terminated, effective immediately, for cause." David Chen nodded, already dialing his phone as he stood. Marcus fumbled for his black card. In seconds, the 2 men were gone, leaving Amelia alone at the table with the billionaire. The restaurant was buzzing as the maître d' began informing the stunned patrons that their meals were compliments of Mr. Thorne. But at table 7, the world had shrunk to 2 people. Julian leaned back. He didn't thank her. He didn't praise her. He simply assessed her. "Who are you?" he asked. "Amelia Vance," she said, her voice stronger than she expected. "That's not what I asked. I was a doctoral candidate at Columbia. Paleography. My family. We had some trouble. I had to leave the program." "You speak 6 languages," he stated. It wasn't a question. 8, she corrected softly. "If you count Old Norse and the alchemical variant of medieval Latin." Julian nodded, as if this confirmed a private theory. "The wager," he said. $10 million. Amelia's heart hammered against her ribs. "Yes." "That was a joke," he said flatly, his eyes like chips of ice. "A figure of speech. Public bombast. No sane court would enforce it." Amelia's stomach dropped. Of course he would say that. He was a billionaire. He didn't lose. He didn't pay. "But," he continued, holding up one finger. "The information you provided, that is not a joke. It is perhaps the most valuable single piece of data I have acquired this fiscal year." He steepled his fingers. "So, Miss Vance, we have a problem. You have something I need. Not just what's on that napkin. You have the key. The rest of that 214-page manuscript. And I have your $10 million. He smiled, and this time it was all teeth. "Let's talk about your new employment." The restaurant, L'Étoile d'Or, was in a state of confused celebration. Champagne was being sent to tables, compliments of Julian Thorne. The maître d', Girard, who had always looked at Amelia with a faint, lingering disapproval, was now practically bowing, assuming she had somehow charmed the billionaire. But at table 7, the air was frigid. "I'm not looking for a job, Mr. Thorne," Amelia said, her hands clasped in her lap to stop them from shaking. "I'm looking for you to honor your wager." Julian let out a short, sharp sigh, as if dealing with a recalcitrant child. "Ms. Vance." "Amelia, let's be practical. If I cut you a check for $10 million right now, what's the first thing you think happens?" Amelia thought of her sister, Clara. "I'd pay for my sister's medical treatments. I'd pay off my student loans." "No," Julian interrupted. "That's what you would do. I'm asking what happens. I'll tell you. The IRS happens. The SEC happens. They'll want to know why Thorne Industries just transferred 8 figures to a waitress. Then the press happens. Billionaire's bizarre bar bet. And then," he leaned in, his voice dropping, "Aperture Global happens. My competitors, the people I am currently in $100 billion shadow war with over this exact piece of land, they will see that payment, and they will wonder why. They will find you, Miss Vance, and they are not as polite as I am. They will not offer you money. They will take the information, and when you've told them everything you know, you will become a loose end. A very, very permanent loose end." The blood in Amelia's veins turned to ice water. He was describing a world she knew existed, but had never, ever wanted to touch. "You're trying to scare me," she whispered. "I'm not trying," he said simply. "I'm informing you. That money, paid in that way, isn't freedom. It's a bullet. It's a target on your back and the back of— Who did you say? Your sister, Clara." Amelia flinched. He had heard. He had logged that name. "So here is my counteroffer," Julian continued, pulling a sleek black business card and his gold pen from his jacket. "You come and work for me. Not as a waitress, as a principal consultant. You will work directly with me. You will translate the rest of the Vayner manuscript. You will have access to resources you've only dreamed of. Our labs, our archives." He started writing on the back of the card. "I will give you a signing bonus of $1 million. Tax-free. Paid through a creative, corporate structure. I will give you an annual salary of $500,000. And," he pushed the card across the table, "I will personally handle your sister's medical care. She will see the best doctors in the world. At my expense. Whatever she needs. Consider it done." He sat back. "This is the offer. You get wealth. You get to do the work you were born to do. Your sister is safe. And most importantly, you are under my protection. You're part of Thorne Industries. Untouchable." Amelia looked at the card. It was an ironclad, beautiful cage. He was offering her everything she'd ever wanted. Financial security, her sister's health, a return to the academic work she loved. But the price was her freedom. The price was him. "And my silence," Amelia said. "And your silence," Julian agreed, nodding. "That is non-negotiable. You will sign an NDA so thick it could stop a bullet. You will not speak of the manuscript, the translation, or this night to anyone. Ever." "And the $10 million? "The $10 million was a joke," he said, his patience wearing thin. "This," he tapped the card, "is reality. The joke is over." Amelia stared at the card. She saw her sister's face. She saw the crushing weight of her debt. She saw the men from Aperture Global that Thorne had conjured in her imagination. "You're not giving me a choice," she said. "No," Julian agreed. "I'm not." "If I say no?" Julian's eyes went flat. "Then you are just a waitress who spilled water on me. I will have you fired. You will go home to your debts and your sick sister. And Aperture Global will, eventually, find that site. Or I might just leak to a friendly reporter that a certain former Columbia student has a fascinating theory about the Vayner manuscript. Aperture will find you by breakfast. Your choice, Miss Vance, the cage with the golden bars, or the one with the wolves." 2 minutes, that's how long he gave her. He picked up his water glass and watched her. Amelia's mind was racing. He had planned for every contingency. He had analyzed her, found her weaknesses, her sister, her debt, her ambition, and weaponized them. But he'd missed one. He'd assumed her shyness was weakness. He'd assumed her intellect was purely academic. He hadn't realized that the same mind that could decode a 15th century cipher could also decode a 21st century predator. She recognized his strategy: isolate, intimidate, acquire. He was trying to buy a priceless artifact, her brain, for pennies on the dollar. The $1 million offer was an insult, measured against the $100 billion prize. "No," she said. Julian Thorne's eyebrows shot up. It was the first genuine surprise he'd shown all night. "No?" "No," Amelia said, pushing the business card back across the table. "That's not the deal. I assure you it is." "It's a bad deal," Amelia said, her voice shaking, but her resolve hardening. "You're right about the danger. You're right about my sister. You've left me no choice but to work with you. But you're wrong about the terms." She took a deep breath. "You don't just need a translator, Mr. Thorne. You need an interpreter. You need the one person on the planet who understands this manuscript. You think it's a map. It's not. You think it's a deed. It's more. That formula I translated? It's not for a mineral. It's for a process I'm not even sure I understand yet. Without me, you'll drill in the right place and find nothing. You'll be no better than Aperture." Julian was listening. His face was granite. "So here's my counteroffer," Amelia said, channeling every ounce of negotiating power she didn't know she had. "You will honor the wager, the $10 million. Not as a joke, but as my signing bonus. Because that was the price you set. It will be paid as a retainer, through a legal framework that Mr. Chen can draft to protect me from the very wolves you're sicking on me." "And the salary?" he asked, his voice a dangerous purr. "I don't want your salary," Amelia said. "Salaries are for employees. You're not hiring me, Mr. Thorne. You're partnering with me. I want a percentage." Julian actually laughed. "A percentage? Of Thorne Industries?" "Don't be ridiculous," Amelia snapped, the uncharacteristic sharpness surprising them both. "A percentage of the find, of the project. Whatever this manuscript leads to, I want a piece of it. A real, binding, legal piece. And my sister's medical care? That's not a perk, Mr. Thorne. That is condition number 1. She stood up. Her legs felt like jelly, but she stood. "You have my terms. You have 24 hours to have Mr. Chen draft the contract. You can find me, well, You know where I work." She turned to leave. "You're fired." She stopped, her back to him. "Gerard!" Julian called out, and the maître d' came running. "Miss Vance will be leaving. Her employment here is terminated, effective immediately. She bothered me." Gerard looked, horrified, at Amelia. "Miss Vance! Get your things! You are disgraced!" Amelia closed her eyes. She had known he would do that. It was his last, petty power play. She turned around. She looked Julian Thorne dead in the eye. "You just made a terrible mistake," she said. "Oh?" Julian raised an eyebrow. "Firing you?" "No," Amelia said. "Letting me leave the building." She walked away, past the shocked stares of her co-workers and the bewildered diners. As she pushed through the heavy glass doors of L'Étoile d'Or, she wasn't a fired waitress. She was a free agent, and she had just declared war. The cool night air of the Upper East Side hit Amelia like a slap. One moment she was in the superheated, high-pressure bubble of L'Étoile d'Or. The next she was on the sidewalk, her apron still on, her ears ringing. She was unemployed. She had just insulted one of the most powerful men in the world, and she had, essentially, bet her entire life, and her sister's, on a 500-year-old manuscript. Her bravery evaporated, leaving raw panic. What had she done? She ripped off the apron and stuffed it in a public trash can, a small, symbolic act of defiance. She started the long walk to the subway. A cab was a luxury she couldn't afford. Not now. Not ever. She lived in a tiny, pre-war walk-up in Astoria, Queens, a different universe from the one she'd just left. As she rode the N train, the faces around her were weary, tired, and real. This was her world, a world of student debt, medical co-pays, and the constant, dull ache of what if? When she got to her apartment, the lights were on. Her heart leaped. "Clara!" she called out, fumbling with her keys. Her younger sister was on the sofa, wrapped in a blanket, her face pale but smiling. "Ames, you're home late. How was the land of the ridiculously wealthy?" Clara was a painter. She was vibrant and sharp, and her illness, a rare, debilitating autoimmune disorder, had only sharpened her wit. It was the treatments that were dimming her light, and the cost of those treatments that was crushing Amelia. "You know," Amelia said, trying to sound normal, forcing a smile. "Same old. Rich people complaining about the temperature of their soup." "You look different," Clara said, her artist's eye missing nothing. "You look like you just saw a ghost, or kissed a prince." "Or fought a dragon," Amelia muttered. She sat down, her body finally acknowledging the adrenaline crash. She wanted, more than anything, to tell Clara. To tell her that she'd stared down a billionaire, that she'd translated the Weiner manuscript, that everything might be about to change. But she couldn't. Thorne's threat, a target on your back and the back of your sister, Clara, echoed in her head. Her silence was Clara's shield. "Just a long night, Claire. I think I got fired." Clara sat up, her smile vanishing. "Ames? What? Why? I spilled water on a VVIP. He was a jerk. It's fine. I'll find something else." "Oh, Ames." Clara's eyes filled with tears, the ones Amelia hated. The "I'm a burden" tears. "No," Amelia said, her voice fierce. "Stop that. It's not fine, but I am. I'm going to fix this. I promise you." She got Clara settled, made her some tea, and waited until her sister's breathing was deep and even. Then, and only then, did Amelia go to her own room. She didn't sleep. She went to her desk, a flimsy particle board thing, and logged into her old Columbia University portal. Her access was still active, a clerical oversight. She typed in Weiner, J. Soloway. Dr. Soloway. The expert. Julian Thorne's expert. Amelia had known the name. She found his doctoral thesis, and a cold dread settled over her. His entire thesis was on the Vayner manuscript, and it was wrong. Utterly, fundamentally, amateurishly wrong. He had made the exact mistake the alchemist had intended, falling into the astrological trap. His entire career was built on a mistranslation, but that wasn't the scary part. The scary part was that in his acknowledgements, he thanked his primary funding source, Aperture Global. Thorne's expert wasn't just wrong, he was a spy. He wasn't failing to translate the manuscript for Thorne. He was actively mistranslating it, feeding Thorne bad data while Aperture drilled in the right spot. But they were drilling in the wrong spot, Thorne had said, which meant Soloway. He didn't know he was wrong. He couldn't read it. He was a fraud, working for Aperture, and he was just as stuck as Thorne. Amelia's head spun. This was more complex than a simple rivalry. It was a web of corporate espionage, and she was the fly that had just blundered into the center. A sound, a click. Amelia went still. Her apartment was old. It made noises. But this was a different noise. It came from her front door, the sound of a lock being tested. She crept from her room, her heart pounding a drumbeat against her ribs. She looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. She was imagining things. She was paranoid. Thorne had gotten in her head. She went back to her room, but the fear was a cold, physical thing. She checked the locks on her window, and as she looked down at the street, 4 stories below, she saw him, a man, standing across the street. He wasn't in a car. He was just standing under a streetlight, dressed in a dark suit, nondescript. He was looking up, not at her building, at her window. He saw her move. He didn't hide. He just tilted his head. It wasn't Thorne's man. Thorne's men would be obvious, big, ex-military, designed to intimidate. This man was different. He was a shadow. He was the kind of man who followed you, who listened to your calls, who clicked your locks. He was Aperture. Julian Thorne was right. The wolves were here, and they had found her before breakfast. Her phone buzzed, making her scream. It was an unknown number, a text. Your 24 hours are up, Ms. Vance, but the terms have changed. You are no longer a potential asset. You are a liability. I have a car 2 blocks away, at the corner of 30th and 34th Ave. You have 5 minutes to get in it. If you are not in that car, I will assume you have accepted a counteroffer, and I will act accordingly. It wasn't signed. It didn't need to be. He had fired her to set her adrift, to make her vulnerable, to let the wolves find her, to show her exactly what she had refused. He was showing her, in real time, the choice, the cage with the golden bars or the one with the wolves. But he had miscalculated. He thought he was showing her the wolves. But he had also just shown her the wolves' location. He'd confirmed the man on the street was not his. Amelia grabbed her laptop. She grabbed the file on Soloway. She texted back. I'm not coming to you. You're coming to me. New York Public Library, Bryant Park. 1 hour. Come alone. Or your expert, Dr. Soloway, has a very interesting conversation with the SEC and Aperture Global's board. Your choice. She hit send. She grabbed her keys, her sneakers. She looked at Clara, sleeping peacefully. I will fix this, she whispered. She slipped out the back entrance of her building, a fire escape she'd never used. The man on the street didn't even see her go. The shy waitress was gone. The game was on. The Rose Main reading room of the New York Public Library is a cathedral of silence. It's a vast, cavernous space where the only sounds are the rustle of turning pages and the soft tapping of keyboards. The ceiling soars, painted with murals of ethereal clouds. It's a public space, but one that demands reverence. Amelia chose it for a reason. It was public, a safe space, brightly lit and full of witnesses, but the enforced silence meant there would be no shouting, no bombast, as Julian had called it. Here they would have to whisper. And in a whisper war, Amelia knew her quiet intensity gave her an advantage. She sat at one of the long oak tables, her back to a solid wall. She'd arrived 30 minutes early, watching the entrances. She saw him arrive. Julian Thorne, in this setting, looked like a panther in a monastery. He was a creature of steel and glass, and the old-world wood and brass seemed to repel him. He wore a dark, perfectly tailored suit, but no tie. He was not here for pleasure. He was alone, as she'd demanded. He scanned the room, his eyes, so used to commanding boardrooms, now having to search for her. She didn't wave. She just watched him. His eyes finally found hers. He didn't smile. He just moved toward her, his walk a predator's glide. He sat down opposite her. A librarian, a stern-looking woman with glasses, immediately walked over. "Sir, I'm sorry, but there's no talking in this section." Julian Thorne looked at the woman. He was probably unused to being shushed by anyone. He was about to speak, to buy the library, perhaps, but Amelia cut him off. "It's all right," Amelia whispered, her voice perfect for the room. "He's my tutor. We're working on a translation." The librarian gave Julian a suspicious look, but was placated by Amelia's academic demeanor. She nodded and moved away. Julian stared at Amelia. A slow, dangerous smile touched his lips. "A tutor. Very clever, Miss Vance. You've been busy." "I found your wolf," Amelia whispered, getting straight to the point. "The man outside my apartment. Not yours. Aperture's. You set me up." "I gave you a choice," Julian whispered back, his voice a low, gravelly rasp. "You chose poorly. You were supposed to be scared. You were supposed to call me, begging for the cage. Instead, I found this." She slid her laptop across the table and turned it. On the screen was Dr. Soloway's thesis. Julian glanced at it. Soloway. My failed expert. He's irrelevant. "He's not your expert. He's theirs," Amelia whispered. "His entire doctoral thesis was funded by a shell corporation that traces back to Aperture Global's R&D division." Julian's eyes narrowed. He read the acknowledgement page. His jaw visibly tightened. The panther was coiling. "He's a mole," Julian stated. It wasn't a question. "He's a fraud," Amelia corrected. "And a bad one. He's been feeding you bad translations because he can't read the manuscript. He's just as stuck as you are. He's been telling you to drill in the eastern quadrant, hasn't he? Because he mistranslates Occidentum as hidden instead of west." Julian's silence was all the confirmation she needed. He had been spending hundreds of millions of dollars drilling in the wrong place, all on the word of a rival's spy. The level of his fury was a tangible thing, a cold heat radiating across the table. "So," Julian whispered, his voice terrifyingly calm, "you've proven you're smart. You've proven my entire intelligence division is incompetent. What is it you want, Amelia? To rub my nose in it?" "I want the deal," Amelia said. "We have a deal. 1,500,000 and your sister's life." "That deal is off the table," Amelia said. "That was the deal you offered the waitress. You're now negotiating with the only person on Earth who can save your $100 billion project from your own spy." She took a deep breath. "Here are the new terms, and they are not negotiable." She slid a piece of paper across the table. She had written them down. 1. $10 million, paid in full by wire transfer within 24 hours. Not as a retainer, as a consulting fee for services already rendered. My silence on Soloway. Mr. Chen can build the legal fortress. I don't care how. That's his problem. 2. My sister's medical care, all of it, effective immediately. She's to be moved to the Shepherd Center with Dr. Aris Thorne's top specialist. Julian's head snapped up. Dr. Aris Thorne was his reclusive, brilliant cousin, the one positive thing his family name was attached to. How do you know about— I do my research, Amelia whispered. I'm not the only one in my family who's smart. 3. I don't want a salary. I don't want to be your partner. I am a consultant. You will pay me a fee of $100,000 per translated page. There are 213 pages left. Julian's eyes went wide. He was about to speak. That's $21,300,000. Amelia did the math for him. A bargain, considering what's at stake. And it's per page. You get the translation, I get the payment. A simple transaction, no percentage, no partnership. 4. I do not work for Thorne Industries. I work at Thorne Industries. I am an independent contractor. I will require a lab, a full security detail, and 24/7 access to the manuscript's digital files. My security detail will report to me, not your head of security. Their job is to protect me from Aperture, and, if necessary, from you. Julian leaned back. He looked at the paper. He looked at Amelia. He was utterly, completely silent for a full minute. The only sound was the rustle of a page from a librarian 2 tables over. He was calculating. 10 miplohaska, 21 security, plus medical, a total of perhaps $35 million. That's a lot of money for a tutor, he finally whispered. It's a rounding error for what you're about to gain, Amelia said, and it's the price of your failure. You failed to see Soloway. You failed to see the manuscript's value. You failed to see me. My price is high because your mistakes are expensive. A slow smile spread across Julian Thorne's face. It was the first genuine, non-predatory smile she'd seen. It was a smile of pure, unadulterated respect, the smile of one shark recognizing another. You're a monster, Ms. Vance, he whispered. I'm a linguist, she whispered back, and I'm protecting my sister. My security detail, he countered, pointing to item 4. They will report to me. That is non-negotiable. I cannot have an independent army in my own building. I will protect you, but I will do it my way. Amelia considered. It was a sticking point, but he was right. It was his fortress. Fine, she conceded, but I want Harris. Harris? The man on your security detail, the one who's ex-Mossad, the one who actually saw the man from Aperture. He's smart. The other one, Lang, is a meathead. I want Harris as my personal detail. Julian was stunned. How in God's name do you know the names of my security team? I told you, Amelia said, starting to pack her laptop. I do my research. Julian Thorne started to laugh, a quiet, terrifying, shoulders-shaking laugh, which he had to muffle into his hand to avoid attracting the librarian. This is going to be fun, he whispered, his eyes gleaming with a new, dangerous light. He picked up the piece of paper. Have Mr. Chen wait. No, you go to Mr. Chen. He's in the car. He's been in the car this whole time. You didn't come alone. Of course I didn't come alone, Julian scoffed. Give this to David. Tell him to make it iron. He'll know what that means. And, Amelia, she paused. Welcome to Thorne Industries. The next 4 weeks were a blur. Amelia was extracted from her old life like a tooth. One day, she was in a crumbling Astoria walk-up. The next, she was in a sterile, ultra-modern penthouse apartment on the 80th floor of the Thorne Tower, connected by a private elevator to her new lab on the 79th. Her lab wasn't a lab. It was a fortress, The walls were a foot thick, the glass was bulletproof, and the air was filtered. Her security, led by the quiet and watchful Harris, was absolute. Clara was moved to the Shepherd Center, and for the first time in years, Amelia saw color in her sister's cheeks. The gratitude and relief were so overwhelming, it almost made her forget she was living in a gilded cage. And the work was heaven. The Vayner manuscript, in its complete 214-page digital glory, was more than a journal. It was a labyrinth. The alchemist, a 15th-century genius named Aladus, had encoded a new form of science. Amelia's initial translation was correct, but it was just the first layer. The geothermal energy she'd seen wasn't just about heat. Aladus had discovered a unique geological formation in the Pyrenees, where certain minerals, when subjected to specific geothermal pressures, created a self-sustaining, clean energy reaction. It wasn't just a mine, it was a battery, a perpetual, planet-scale battery. The deed wasn't for the land, it was for the process. She worked 18-hour days, sleeping on a cot in her lab, fueled by coffee and the thrill of the chase. She sent her translations to Julian, page by page, and as she did, the wire transfers appeared in her account. $100,000, $100,000, $100,000. Her bank account, which had once flatlined, now looked like a telephone number. A strange, sterile partnership formed between her and Julian Thorne. He would appear in her lab at 3 a.m., his suit rumpled, his eyes bright with an almost manic energy. "Page 47, he would growl. "The silver serpent. Is it a river? Is it a metaphor for Mercury?" "It's an aqueduct," Amelia would reply, not looking up from her screen. "He built an aqueduct inside the volcano to channel the petrifying mineral water. He's using it to build the reaction chamber." Julian would just stare at her. He built it 500 years ago. "He was a genius," Amelia said, "and you're about to steal his work." "It's not stealing, Miss Vance," Julian said, pouring himself a coffee. "It's honoring him. We are the only two people alive who understand what he did. We are his heirs." This was the new dynamic. He had started calling her Amelia. He had started using the word we. Amelia remained Ms. Vance. She remained distant. But it was hard. He was the only person she could talk to. He was brilliant, ruthless, and he saw her as an equal. The shyness was still there, but her confidence, born of her work, was a shield. Then David Chen arrived. The quiet, sleek legal counsel. He had drafted her contract, a masterpiece of legal protection, and she hadn't seen him since. He appeared at her lab door one evening, his face grim. Harris, her bodyguard, tensed. "I have a meeting with Miss Vance," David said. "It's not on the schedule," Harris replied. "It's all right, Harris," Amelia said. "Mr. Chen is family." David entered, and the door hissed shut. He looked at the walls, covered in Amelia's notes, diagrams, and translated script. "He's going to betray you," David said, his voice flat. Amelia stopped writing. "What?" "The contract. It's perfect. Your payments are secure. But you're missing the long game. You're translating the how to build it, how to activate it. But Thorne isn't just a miner. He's a corporate raider." He pointed to a financial terminal in the corner that Julian had installed. "He's not just planning to build this. He's planning to hide it. He's creating a new shell corporation, Vance Geothermal." Amelia's heart skipped. He named it. After me. It was a strange, unsettling feeling. "He named it after you because it's going to fail," David said. "He's going to pour all the initial investment into it. He'll get the patents under that name. And then he's going to let it be buried in regulatory red tape. He will publicly declare the Vayner project a geological impossibility, The stock will crash to zero. But why? He'd lose billions. No, David said, his eyes dark. He'd lose paper. And then a second, unknown, privately held company, a vulture fund, will swoop in, buy all of Vance Geothermal's assets, the patents, the land, your translations, for a penny on the dollar. He'll take the company private. He will cut out all his initial investors, the board, and you. He'll own 100% of the greatest energy discovery in human history, and you'll be left with your $30 million, which, to him, is the cost of a paperclip. He's not just stealing from Oladus, he's stealing from his own shareholders. Amelia sat down. She felt sick. He was using her name. He was using her work, and he was going to cheat the world. Why are you telling me this, David? David Chen walked to the window, looking down at the city 79 floors below. Julian Thorne is a predator, he said, his voice low. My father built a small tech company in the 90s. Thorne acquired it. A friendly acquisition. He leveraged my father's debt, forced him out, and bankrupted him. My father. He died 6 months later. Of a heart attack. He was 49. Amelia's blood ran cold. I went to law school on a scholarship, David continued. I made myself the best. I got a job at the firm that represented Thorne. I made myself indispensable. For 15 years I have been his loyal, silent counsel. I have been waiting for the one thing that could destroy him. The one thing he couldn't control. He turned and looked at her. You, Miss Vance. You are the thing. What do you want? Amelia whispered. I want to ruin him. The way he ruined my father. The twist. I'm not just his counsel, David said. I'm a silent informant. For Aperture Global. Amelia's world tilted. You were the real mole, not Soloway. Soloway was a useful idiot, David said. I'm the one who fed his name to Thorne. I knew he was a fraud. I was counting on him failing, to slow Julian down, to make him reckless. And then you magnificent, impossible variable. You walked in. You handed me the weapon on a silver platter. He pulled a small encrypted hard drive from his pocket. Aperture doesn't know the full truth. They just know Thorne has a key. They are desperate. They are prepared to pay far more than Thorne. They will give you everything he promised, and 50% of the new venture. In binding stock, you will be the richest woman on the planet. And you? I get my pound of flesh. I get to watch his empire burn. All you have to do, Amelia, is give me the real translation. The final pages. The activation sequence you're working on. Give it to me, and we'll give it to Aperture. Thorne will be ruined. We both win. He placed the drive on her desk. You're a linguist. You know the power of words, the power to build, and the power to destroy. He left her in the lab. The silence was deafening. She was trapped between Julian, the predictable, charming, ruthless shark, and David, the patient, grieving, vengeful viper. One wanted to own the world. The other wanted to burn it down. And she was just the translator. She was just the key. And both of them were going to destroy her to get what they wanted. Amelia didn't sleep. She saw the trap set by David and the one set by Julian, and she decided to spring her own. She was no longer a pawn, she was a queen. At 10 p.m., L'Etoile d'Or was dark, just as she'd planned. She sat at table 7 when David Chen arrived, flanked by Aperture Global's CEO, Eleanor Hayes. Ms. Vance, Eleanor said. All business? You have what we discussed. The complete translation, Amelia confirmed, sliding the small black hard drive across the table. The activation sequence, everything. My terms are 50%. As Eleanor's fingers brushed the drive, the restaurant's lights flooded the room. Julian Thorne stepped out from the shadows, his security team emerging from every corner. "Aperture," he smiled. "So glad you could make it." David's face went white. "Amelia, you set me up." "No," Amelia said, her voice cold. "You set yourself up. I did the research, you didn't. Aperture ruined your father. David, not Thorne. You've been a puppet for the wrong master." "And you," she said to Eleanor, "have just accepted a hard drive containing Dr. Soloway's fake thesis, loaded with a virus that's currently notifying the SEC of this lovely meeting. You're trespassing to commit corporate espionage." Julian's men escorted the stunned Aperture team and the broken David Chen out of the building. Silence. It was just Amelia and Julian. "That," Julian said, "was spectacular." "We're not finished," Amelia said. She slid a new paper across the table. "My final terms. Vance Geothermal goes public, and I am the CEO. 10% equity, non-negotiable. My sister, Clara, will run the foundation." Julian stared. "And the translation? The key?" Amelia stood, tapping her temple. "It's in here. You'll get it when my contract is signed." Julian Thorne stared at the woman who had checkmated everyone, including him. He threw his head back and laughed. "CEO it is, Miss Vance. CEO it is." In the end, it wasn't about the $10 million. It was about the price of being underestimated. Amelia Vance started her night serving bread and ended it as the CEO of a revolutionary company. She proved that the quietest person in the room is often the most dangerous. She didn't just find her voice, she found her power, and she used it to change the world. What's the hidden talent you're sitting on? This story just goes to show you that you should never, ever judge a book by its cover, or a waitress by her apron. If you loved this story of drama, twists, and sweet, sweet revenge, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you're new here, subscribe and ring that bell. We drop stories like this every week, and you don't want to miss what happens next. Finally, share this video with someone who needs a reminder of their own power. Leave a comment below. What would you have done with the $10 million? Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next story.